Podcasting from her kitchen table, it's Jacqueline J. Here with another episode of Cast Iron Skillet Chronicles, where we focus on faith, family, fun, and finance for my fierce, fly, and fabulous sisters over 40. Come on in the kitchen. Coffee's brewing. Pull up a chair, and girl, let's talk. Now, here is your host for Cast Iron Skillet Chronicles, Jacqueline J. And welcome back to the kitchen. I am so excited to have as our guest here on Cast Iron Skillet Chronicles, Miss Nubia. And I don't want to mess up your name, so you can introduce yourself to our guest. But thank you so very much for joining me in the kitchen for this chat today. So please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, this is Nubia Younge. You said it right. You didn't have to say the last name. It's cool. And I am at the kitchen table from Mexico City today. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Mexico City. Oh my goodness. I tell you, when we first initially connected, that immediately caught my eye as we were ourselves in the middle of a transition from one state to another. But oh my goodness, you've actually made the leap from one country to another. Talk to us about that process, that journey, what that looked like. What prompted you to make that move?
Okay, so let's just start from the beginning. This is the third country I've lived in.
Oh my goodness.
For the last 3 years, yeah.
Okay.
I am 42 this year and a single mother of 2 young adults. And I'm a Bostonian, a native from Boston, Massachusetts, as you know.
Yes.
And my first move out of Boston was to Virginia, Fairfax, Virginia. And I left Boston because I was seasonally depressed. Boston, if anyone has been up to the Northeast Corridor, knows the winters are very long, very harsh, and cold. And it took a toll on me mentally and physically to the point where I wasn't really able or didn't want to take care of the responsibilities that I had because I would want to lock myself in the room and just stay in the bed. I mean, taking a shower was a chore, all of the things that come with depression. And I couldn't really figure out what it was, and then that's when I talked to my doctor about it and I was diagnosed clinically seasonal depressed. So I was like, I got to make a change, I got to go. And that's when I moved down to Virginia. It was further enough south, but not so far away from the north where I could still get back and forth. Sure. And it brought a lot more sunlight into my world. And so the kids and I stayed in Virginia for about several years. And once my daughter was off to college and my son was about to go into high school as a senior, I literally came home one day and my son was in the living room playing video games. And there was don't get me wrong, I'm skipping like a multitude of steps ahead. Sure. But I was having some issues with my eldest daughter, going off to college and her just trying to find herself. But in the interim, it's like dragging me down with her and everything. And I came home and my son was in the living room playing video games. And his dirty socks are on the floor, his sneakers, his book bag. And I just lost my stuff. I just said, you know what? I said, I'm done. I'm tired. I don't want to do this no more right now. Something came over me and was just like, enough is enough. So I said, pack your stuff. You're going to go live with your dad. That was it. I was over it. I was like, I was 38 at the time, about to turn 39. And I was just like, all my life, like literally all my young adult life, I've done nothing but raise children. And it's time for me to be an adult and be my own person without having to, clean up after kids. Right? And so I called his father and I said, enough is enough. You need to take him. He's going on, I think he was 16 at the time. I was like, he's 16. He's going into his last year of high school. You need to do something. You need to do it now. So my son left that December and crazy thing was so much happened and transpired after that particular moment. So my son moved to Jersey. My daughter was in college. So I was finally an empty nester. I started to look at my townhome. I had a 3-story townhouse, and I said, it's time to downsize. And I had already started traveling years before, but I was still working full time. I had my own business. And so I was thinking, in the close near future, like I'll retire early. That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
I'll retire early, travel long term. So I looked at my townhome and I said, enough is enough. And I just started putting things on Craigslist. I had open houses, and I just started selling and getting rid of stuff. So once that happened, I found myself a 1-bedroom condo. Girl, I did it up. I was like the Jeffersons, what I said, I ain't got to worry about secondhand stuff. I bought, glass tables and things that I do that I wouldn't have to clean up other people's fingerprints and all that. Right. I did all the adult stuff, and I went and got myself a luxury condo in McLean, Virginia. So fast forward, I go on vacation to Portugal the following year, and I'm on vacation from Christmas to New Year. And I come back to work January, I think it was 4th, and I was at work maybe about 30 minutes before I was called into the office and was laid off.
Oh my goodness.
Talking about devastated, okay?
Yeah.
Absolutely devastated, because I was more or less like, y'all could have told me this while I was in Europe.
Yep.
Or you could have told me this before I left for the holiday, and I would have knew what to do with my money. You know what I mean? But I was just like, how dare you? But then I looked at it as a blessing. I had to change my perspective. Yep. I really wasn't happy at work, and I was ready for change. And I'm a firm believer of you create your existence, you create your reality. So I was complaining a lot about the job. I was complaining a lot about my position and not being moved up because of, whatever. Wow. And so the universe just took it from me and was like, well, now you don't have it. What you gonna do, And, but here I was with this condo apartment. I had my car. I had all these responsibilities to take care of financially, and I didn't have a job. So I decided to just roll with the punches. I had been what you would call robbing Peter to pay Paul all my life, taking care of kids. So I knew I was going to be okay. So I said, you know what? This is my opportunity to get up and travel. My job, even though they had let me out, they gave me a good package. I had 6 months worth of health insurance, 3 months worth of paid, leave, everything. So I had a good amount that I could take with me. So I set off on an adventure to Vietnam. Technically, that's where I thought I was going to go, of August of 2017. No, 16, August 2016, yeah. And I set off on an adventure to Vietnam, but landed in Thailand just to kind of lay over and check Bangkok out. And then I went to this place called Chiang Mai, and I loved it. And I didn't leave. I did not leave. And I built a life there and a community there. And I worked online, and I did all the things that I could do to try to stay. And so in my time in Chiang Mai, I spent 2 years there. I went to 8 countries within Southeast Asia because it's very accessible and affordable to travel within Southeast Asia once you're there. And after a while, I was like, I love it here, but it's so homogenous that I didn't think that I was looking for more diversity. My mind was craving, conversations with people that I can actually have conversations with, because you speak Thai. And then there was no real reason for me to learn Thai, because once you leave Thailand, you don't speak Thai. So it made no sense to learn the language. And it's hard to incorporate yourself into a Thai culture, as a Black American. And so I set off to Colombia. And I was like, I'm going to go live in Medellin, and I'm just going to, somebody's abuela and tias are going to open their arms, and I'm just going to have rice and beans all day, have this whole fascination of what I thought it would be. And it just wasn't what I thought it would be.
Mm.
Colombia is a beautiful place. You know, I got to travel through Medellin, Cartagena, but it didn't feel like home
Mm-hmm.
to me.
Yeah.
And I started really longing for something that felt like home, you know, not something that was familiar, but something that made my heart smile, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, I'm on this pursuit of happiness. Let's go. So I said, Colombia is not it. Let's try Mexico. And I came to Mexico because it's not too far from the States. It's
Mm-hmm.
affordable. After living in Thailand for 2 years, it was just so far. Like I only had a handful of visitors in the 2 years that I was there. And if something were to happen to my children or, you know, my grandmother had passed when I was in Thailand, I wasn't flying, you know, 36 hours to go to a memorial. Like it was just too much. But being
Right.
in Mexico, it's a good 4, 5, 6 hour flight, depending on where you're going
Mm-hmm.
within the States. And so I landed in Mexico City just this past July of 2019. And
Wow.
I fell in love with the place. I was like, I could see myself living here, you know?
Okay.
And since I've been in Mexico, I've traveled to Cancun. I spent time in Cancun, Playa del Carmen, and most recently Tulum.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to get my fun in the sun. So I went to Tulum for a 3-day getaway just to kind of get away from it all and unplug, and ended up getting an opportunity that allowed me to stay in Tulum for 30 days. And
Wow.
so, exactly. The way, like I said, you know, I've been on this going with the flow thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went with the flow and I allowed the universe to unfold what it had for me. So with that said, I left Tulum about 2 weeks ago, not even, maybe 10 days ago, and I'm back in Mexico City. And 2 days coming back to Mexico City, I was hit with this huge, overwhelming, like, thoughts of negativity. I didn't know what was going on. I was
Mm.
questioning my purpose. I was questioning, you know, my existence, and it was just really bad, right? It was like
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't. I was like, why am I here? My mind is running a mile a minute. The depression had set in hard, like hit me like a ton of bricks.
Wow.
And it didn't dawn on me until the following day when I talked to a friend, and she was like, you know, you've been dealing with depression for years, like, and it didn't dawn on me that the weather in Mexico City is a lot cooler, and it's fall season, right? And
Uh-huh.
I had been in the Riviera Maya for over a month, and I'm talking about 95-degree weather with the sun
Mm-hmm.
shining on me every day. That I go from one extreme to the next.
Wow.
And so I hadn't been in cold weather in almost 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really eye-opening experience to have dealt with that just, you know, a couple of days ago. So it's like
Sure.
trying to get myself reacclimated to seasons,
Mm-hmm.
seasons. I'm only in Mexico City for a month before I head down to Oaxaca. So I'm gonna check Oaxaca out and see how I like that. And that's in
Okay.
South Central Mexico. That's what you were
So
and
do they have more, do they have more sunlight, or do they have a milder climate than Mexico City?
I would assume so. I don't
Oh,
know. Now,
okay.
you can do all the research you want online, and then you got to get there and
Yeah,
see. But
experience it. Yes.
exactly. But from what I'm hearing, it's an average of 80, you know, year round, averaging,
Okay.
and then it gets hot, you know.
Mhm.
But the coolest temperatures, I think, are about 80, and then in the evenings it gets down to like 60 or something, which is reasonable.
Sure.
Um, but
More
you
more reasonable than Boston.
know, more, anything more reasonable than Boston. And you just recently moved, so
Absolutely. And that was one of the other reasons. But and it's funny, similar situation. My husband was in a similar situation as you were. He'd been out on his job for a while, complaining about, stuff not going right, not being promoted, not given opportunities, etc. And then, I just had to say, okay, well, then what are we going to do? Because if we keep talking